No one wanted us. I still remember how it felt that day standing at the edge of Nexus Spaceport with my daughter Nera, clutched against my chest, both of us shivering despite the sweltering air. The crowd flowed around us like we were nothing but debris caught in a cosmic current. Merchants, travelers, security drones, they all avoided eye contact. Some species physically recoiled when they noticed my markings. "Mommy, I'm hungry," Nera whispered, her small fingers gripping the fabric of my worn travel cloak. I pressed my lips to her forehead, feeling the slight warmth of her fever. My stomach twisted with a familiar ache, not from hunger, but from the crushing weight of helplessness. "Soon, little star, I promise." Another empty promise. I'd been making too many of those lately. That was our 6th rejection that day. 6 different ships, 6 different captains who'd initially agreed to hire me as a mechanic, only to slam their airlock doors when they saw what we truly were. What I truly was: a Telosian refugee with experimental genetics, a mother with a half-breed child who shouldn't exist. I'd nearly given up when I spotted his ship docked in the far corner of the landing grid, an ancient Terran vessel that looked like it had survived 3 wars and a supernova. The hull plating was mismatched, scorched in places, and the landing struts groaned audibly even from where I stood. The manifest listed it as the Wayfarer, independent trader, human captain. Humans, the galaxy's wild cards, too young as a spacefaring species to understand their proper place, too stubborn to care about the political complications of harboring fugitives like us. "One more try," I whispered to Nera. "Just one more." I approached cautiously, scanning for any sign of the captain. The loading ramp was down, cargo containers scattered haphazardly around it. No security perimeter, not even basic identity scanners, either incredibly naive or dangerously confident. That's when I heard the cursing, creative, elaborate human profanity streaming from somewhere beneath the ship's belly. A pair of worn boots stuck out from under the engine housing, accompanied by occasional metallic clangs and more colorful language. I cleared my throat. "Excuse me, Captain." The cursing stopped abruptly. There was a dull thud, another curse, and then he slid out from under the housing. I'll never forget my first glimpse of Dane Korran. Grease-streaked face, dark hair tied back haphazardly, sharp blue eyes that widened slightly upon seeing us. He wasn't particularly tall for a human, but there was something in his posture, a coiled readiness that reminded me of a predator. "Well, Maz," he said, wiping his hands on a rag that was arguably dirtier than they were, "you don't look like customs." "No, sir, My voice caught. How many times had I rehearsed this speech? How many times had it failed? "I'm a mechanic, Class 4 certified on Telosian and Terran systems. I saw your ship needs repairs, and you're looking for passage, not just work." His gaze flicked to Nera, who was trying her best to disappear into my side. His expression softened slightly. "What's your name?" "Sera. This is my daughter, Nera." He nodded slowly, those piercing eyes taking in every detail. My worn clothes, the distinctive markings on my forearms, Nera's unusual coloring. I braced myself for the inevitable rejection. Instead, he pointed to the exposed engine housing. "That thermal regulator is shot to hell. Replacement parts won't be here for 3 days. Think you can jerry-rig something that'll hold until we reach Callisto Station?" I blinked, uncertain if I'd heard correctly. Yes, I can." "Good, because my last mechanic jumped ship at Argos, and I'm absolute garbage at fixing anything more complicated than a coffee maker." He extended a grease-stained hand. "Dane Korran, captain of this flying junkyard." I hesitated before taking his hand. "You don't want to know what I am, where we're from." Something flashed across his face, a hardness that vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Everyone in this galaxy is running from something, Sera. Question is whether you can fix my ship while you're doing it." And just like that, when no one else would even look at us, a rogue human pilot took a chance on a single alien mother and her strange daughter. I didn't know then that this moment would change everything for us, for him, and maybe for the entire galaxy. "Captain, this is statistically unwise," said the android, as Dane led us through the narrow corridors of the Wayfarer. "Hiring unknown personnel without background verification increases operational risk by 73%. "Your objection is noted, Taro." Dane didn't even glance back at the silver-plated android following behind us. "And as usual, ignored." I clutched Nira's hand tighter, hyper-aware of every escape route, every potential weapon within reach. Old habits from a life spent running. Taro's optical sensors flashed blue as they focused on me. Telosian female, approximately 30 standard years. Genetic modifications evident in pigmentation patterns. Child exhibits hybrid characteristics inconsistent with known Telosian subspecies. That's enough, Taro, Dane said, his tone sharper now. Why don't you run diagnostics on the nav system or something? The android tilted its head. Diagnostics were completed 27 minutes ago. All systems functioning within acceptable parameters. Dane sighed. Then go. I don't know alphabetize the cargo manifests. They are already alphabetized, Captain. Then scramble them up and do it again. When Taro didn't immediately move, Dane added, that's an order. The android hesitated, clearly processing the illogical command before finally departing with mechanical steps that echoed down the corridor. Sorry about him, Dane said, running a hand through his disheveled hair. He's an older model. Previous owner hard-coded some excessive security protocols I haven't figured out how to override yet. I nodded cautiously. Most ships wouldn't allow a Telosian aboard without restraints. Your android's concerns are, standard. Something darkened in Dane's expression. Well, the Wayfarer isn't most ships, and I'm definitely not most captains. He stopped at a door and pressed his palm against the scanner. This will be your quarters. It's not much, but it's clean. The door slid open to reveal a small cabin with 2 bunks, a tiny washroom, and a viewport that currently showed nothing but the drab spaceport walls. It was sparse utilitarian, but to Nira and me, after weeks of sleeping in crowded transit stations and cargo holds, it looked like luxury. Thank you, Hoshiona, I said, the words inadequate for the relief flooding through me. Dane shrugged. Get settled in. Mess hall is 2 decks up. Engine room's down 1. I'll need you to take a look at that regulator once you're ready. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Wayfarer leaves port at 0600 tomorrow with or without new parts. If that's a problem, say so now. The implication was clear. Wherever this ship was headed, it was leaving quickly. Probably bending a few regulations in the process. Fine by me. Not a problem, Captain. He nodded, once satisfied, and left us alone. As soon as the door closed, Nira scrambled onto one of the bunks, bouncing slightly on the thin mattress. Mommy, is this our new home? I sat beside her, brushing a strand of silvery hair from her face. For now, little star. I like it. It smells funny, but I like the captain. He has kind eyes. I wished I shared her confidence. Kind eyes or not, I'd learned the hard way that kindness had limits, especially when people discovered what we really were. Just remember what I taught you, I said quietly. No touching anyone. No talking about the dreams. And if you start to feel the buzzing, come find you right away, she finished solemnly. I remember, Mommy. I kissed her forehead. Good girl. Now rest while I go fix the captain's ship. The engine room of the Wayfarer was exactly what I expected. A chaotic blend of at least 3 different technological eras hodgepodged together with more ingenuity than precision. Terran core systems, Calistan navigation array, and what looked suspiciously like salvaged Morothi weaponry retrofitted into the power grid. This wasn't just a trading vessel. This was a survivor ship built and rebuilt by someone who refused to be grounded. I found the thermal regulator exactly where Dane had indicated. One look confirmed his assessment the unit was beyond repair. But with some creative rerouting and a few cannibalized parts from non-essential systems, I could create a temporary bypass that would hold until Callisto. I was so absorbed in the work that I didn't notice Dane's approach until his shadow fell across the open panel. That doesn't look like a standard repair, he observed, crouching beside me. I tensed. Some captains were particular about their ships treating unauthorized modifications as sabotage. The regulator is completely burned out. I'm creating a bypass using the auxiliary cooling system from the cargo hold. It won't affect life support, but you might notice some temperature fluctuations in the lower decks. Instead of anger, his face lit with impressed surprise. You did this without parts, without even checking the schematics. I hesitated. This was the dangerous moment when my abilities raised questions. Have experience with these systems. He studied me with those piercing blue eyes, and I braced for the interrogation. Instead, he said, Good. How long until it's operational? An hour, maybe less. Perfect. He stood and stretched. Finish up here, then come to the mess hall. You and your daughter need to eat. As he walked away, I realized I'd been holding my breath. Most people would have questioned my unusual aptitude with technology. Dane Korran simply accepted it as useful. I wondered what kind of human accepted strange refugees without questions, employed them, without background checks, and didn't blink at unexplained technical abilities. Either the most trusting fool in the galaxy or someone with secrets of his own. I suspected the latter. The mess hall was small but surprisingly well equipped. Nera sat at the metal table legs swinging as she cautiously poked at a bowl of what Dane had called genuine Terran mac and cheese. Her eyes widened at the first taste, and she began eating with enthusiasm that made both Dane and me smile. Good, he asked her. She nodded vigorously. It's yellow and squishy and perfect. Dane laughed, a surprisingly warm sound from someone who looked like they'd forgotten how. High praise from the galaxy's toughest food critic. He pushed another bowl toward me. Eat. You look like you've been running on stims and determination for too long. I couldn't argue with that assessment. The food was simple but filling, and I hadn't realized how hungry I was until the first bite hit my stomach. So, Dane said casually as we ate, "Where are you headed?" I stiffened. "Wherever your ship is going." And before that, where were you trying to get to? I set down my spoon, appetite suddenly diminished. Does it matter? Not to me. He leaned back in his chair, but it might to whoever's been chasing Ma. My blood went cold. What makes you think someone's chasing us? Dane's expression remained neutral, but his eyes were sharp. 3 security sweeps at the port today, officers checking passenger manifests on all outbound vessels. They were looking for someone with distinctive markings and a child. The fear that never truly left me surged back to the surface. We can disembark, right now. I didn't mean to bring trouble to your ship. Bit late for that. He took a sip from his mug. Besides, we're leaving in, he checked his wrist display, 4 hours. Port authorities shift change. Their systems go offline for exactly 12 minutes during the handover. Sloppy security, but convenient timing. I stared at him, uncomprehending. You're still taking us, even knowing we're fugitives. Fugitives, refugees, or travelers with bad timing doesn't much matter to me. Something hardened in his expression. I don't particularly like people who hunt children, whatever their reasons. Nera, oblivious to the tension, piped up. Are you a pirate, Captain Dane? He barked a laugh. No kid, just an independent trader with a flexible interpretation of shipping regulations. My father was looking for pirates, she said conversationally, and I felt my heart stutter. Before the bad men took him away. Dane's eyes flicked to me, questions evident, but he addressed Nera instead. Is that so? And what did these pirates look like? He never found them, but he said they had a map to the old places, the places before the stars broke. She made a bursting gesture with her small hands. Boomed at Nera, I said sharply. Remember our rules about stories. It's not a story, Mommy, it's from the dreams. An uncomfortable silence fell. I could feel Dane's gaze on us, assessing, calculating. I'd seen that look before, the moment when curiosity turned to suspicion, when help turned to harm. But he surprised me again. Well, he said, standing and collecting the empty bowls. Stars or no stars, we've got a departure to prepare for. Nera, how would you like to see the bridge? Her face lit up. Can I press the buttons? Some of them, Amanda, he said with mock seriousness. The ones that don't blow us up or send us into a black hole. As they headed toward the bridge, I followed, bewildered by this human who defied all my expectations, who took in strangers, asked few questions, and seemed unfazed by talk of dream memories that had gotten us expelled from 3 different safe havens. Captain, I said quietly as Nera ran ahead to where Tara was showing her the navigation console. Why are you helping us? Dane watched as my daughter cautiously touched the android's metallic hand, wonders in her eyes. Let's just say I know what it's like to be on the wrong side of people with power and no conscience. There was a story there, a wound still raw beneath the casual words. But before I could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship, red warning lights flashing in the corridor. Proximity alert, Taro announced. Security forces approaching the ship. Estimated time to arrival, 3 minutes. Dane's expression hardened as he moved with sudden urgency toward the bridge. Change of plans. We're leaving now. But the pre-flight checks, I began. We'll have to wait, He slid into the pilot's seat, fingers flying across the controls. Taro, initiate emergency startup sequence. Sera, get to the engine room. That bypass of yours is about to get a stress test. I hesitated, near a small hand clutched in mine. Dane looked back at me, his face set with determination. I need to know right now. Are you with me? In that moment, with alarms howling and the heavy footsteps of security forces echoing across the landing pad outside, I made my choice. Nera, stay with Taro, I said, kneeling to her level. Do exactly as he says. The android nodded solemnly. I will protect the child, Sera. I brushed Nera's cheek. Be brave, little star. Then I ran for the engine room, feeling the Wayfarer shudder to life around me. Behind us, the port authorities would be scrambling to seal the docking clamps to prevent an unauthorized departure. They'd be calling for backup, probably arming the defense systems. Against all logic, against every survival instinct I'd honed over years on the run, I found myself smiling as I reached the engine core. A reckless human captain, an ancient ship, in a desperate escape. It wasn't safety, but for the first time in too long, it felt like hope. As the Wayfarer broke free from the spaceport's gravitational clamps, lurching violently into the upper atmosphere, one thought burned bright in my mind. No one wanted us. Until he did. And that made all the difference in the universe. If you've enjoyed this story so far, take a moment to hit that subscribe button. There's much more to come in Sera and Dane's adventure across the stars. And drop a comment below about what you think might happen next. Will they escape the authorities? What secrets is Sera still hiding? Your theories might be closer to the truth than you think. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for the next part of humanity's chance. The Wayfarer thundered through the upper atmosphere, shaking violently as Dane pushed the old ship well beyond what its systems were designed to handle. In the engine room, I was frantically rerouting power bypassing safety protocols and praying to gods I'd stop believing in that we wouldn't tear apart at the seams. Engine core temperature rising, I shouted into the comm. We need to level out or we'll blow the thermal safeguards. Working on it, Dane's voice crackled back. Defense drones on our tail, hang on. The ship lurched sideways and I slammed against the bulkhead, pain flaring across my shoulder. Warning lights flashed across every console as the artificial gravity fluctuated. For a terrifying moment, I was weightless before being slammed back to the deck as the systems recalibrated. My thoughts flew to Nera. Taro, status on my daughter. The child is secure, Sera. The android's calm voice responded. I have engaged safety protocols in the bridge section. Another violent shake, then a series of rapid-fire explosions that echoed through the hull. What was that? I demanded, heart hammering. Dane's laugh, somehow exhilarated rather than frightened, came through the comm. That was the sound of their tracking beacons missing us. Hold tight. We're making the jump to FTL in 3, 2, 1. The universe compressed around us as the faster-than-light drive engaged. My stomach lurched, vision blurring at the edges, the familiar disorientation of FTL travel, but rougher than any jump I'd experienced before. The Wayfarer's ancient drive system clearly hadn't been calibrated in years. Gradually, the violent shaking subsided to a more manageable vibration. The warning lights on my console shifted from critical red to cautionary amber. We were clear, for now. I sagged against the console, adrenaline still coursing through my system. Several minutes passed before I trusted my legs enough to make my way to the bridge. I found Dane slumped in the pilot's seat, a thin trickle of blood running from his temple, where he'd apparently struck the control panel. Nera sat cross-legged on the floor beside Taro, both apparently unharmed. My daughter's eyes widened when she saw me. Mommy, we went super fast, and Captain Dane did spinning, and there were lights chasing us, and then whoosh! She made an explosive gesture with her hands. Are you hurt? I knelt beside her, checking for injuries. Nope, Taro made a special bubble around me with his arms. She beamed at the android who stood silently watching our reunion. I turned my attention to Dane, who was dabbing at the cut on his temple with a cloth. Captain, how bad is it? The cut had worse shaving. He winced as he pressed the cloth against the wound. The situation we bought ourselves some time, but those weren't just regular port authorities back there. Someone sent a specialized retrieval team. My blood ran cold. I knew exactly who had sent them. How did they track us so quickly? Good question. His eyes met mine, searching. I was hoping you might have some insight on that. I looked away, guilt and fear warring within me. Nera didn't need to hear this conversation. Taro, could you show Nera to our quarters? She needs rest after all this excitement. The android tilted his head, optical sensors flashing. Captain. Dane nodded. Go ahead, run a level 2 security scan while you're at it. Scanning for what? I asked sharply. Standard procedure after an incident. He replied, his tone giving nothing away. Taro checks for damaged system vulnerabilities. Tracking devices. The implication hung in the air between us. I swallowed hard but said nothing as Taro led Nera away, her small hand trustingly placed in his metallic one. Once they were gone, Dane leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I think it's time we had an honest conversation. Sera, what exactly are you running from? I remained standing positioned near the door, an old habit, always keeping escape routes clear. It's complicated. Most things worth running from are, he gestured to the co-pilot's seat. Sit, please. It wasn't an order, but a request. Reluctantly, I took the seat, noticing for the first time the stunning view beyond the viewport. We were deep in FTL space now, reality distorted into streaks of blue-white light that stretched to infinity. Those weren't regular authorities, I admitted finally. They're specialized recovery units from the consortium. The genetic consortium, the research conglomerate. His eyebrows shot up. What does a bunch of lab coats want with you and your daughter? I stared at my hands, at the distinctive markings that branded me as what I truly was. Not a refugee, not even a person in the eyes of consortium law. I'm not a regular Telosian, I said quietly. I'm a prototype, Series GC7 developed to interface directly with ship systems. I forced myself to meet his gaze. I'm property captain, expensive patented property that escaped with an even more valuable second-generation specimen. Understanding dawned in his eyes as he looked toward the corridor where Nera had disappeared. Your daughter is the first successful biosynthetic hybrid, half Telosian, half something they engineered in their labs. She can do things I can't, sense technology over distances, interface with systems she's never seen before. My voice cracked. They were beginning invasive testing when I took her and ran. Dane's expression darkened. How old is she? 5 standard years. He swore under his breath a string of human profanity that somehow sounded like prayer. And her father, a lead scientist on the project, he helped us escape, gave us coordinates to something called Ancient Tech Hub, said we might find answers there. The consortium executed him for treason 3 days later. Silence stretched between us, broken only by the humming of the ship's systems. I waited for the inevitable disgust, fear, or worse, the cold calculation of potential profit. The consortium offered substantial rewards for the return of misappropriated genetic assets. Instead, Dane reached into a compartment beneath the control panel and pulled out a bottle of amber liquid in 2 small cups. Terran whiskey, he explained, pouring a measure into each. Best cure for near-death experiences and conversations about illegal human experimentation. He pushed 1 cup toward me. I eyed it suspiciously. It's not poison, he said with a hint of grim amusement. If I wanted to turn you in, I wouldn't have blown 3 Port Authority drones out of the sky first. I accepted the cup but didn't drink. Why did you help us? I mean, you're risking everything. Dane downed out his whiskey in 1 swift motion, then stared at the empty cup. Let's just say I've seen what happens when people treat others as property, as things. I've seen what the powerful do to the powerless when nobody's watching. Something haunted flickered in his eyes. And I promised myself a long time ago that I'd never stand by and watch it happen again. He refilled his cup, then raised it slightly. To making the bastards work for it, at least. This time I drank with him. The liquor burned a fiery path down my throat, warming me from the inside in a not unpleasant way. So, this ancient tech hub, Dane said after a moment, got coordinates. I hesitated. You're still willing to help. Even knowing what we are, what's coming after us. What you are, he corrected firmly, is a mother protecting her child. The rest is just details. He tapped the navigational display. Coordinates. Slowly, hardly daring to believe this wasn't some cruel trick, I recited the string of numbers and spatial markers Nera's father had given us. Dane input them into the nav system, frowning slightly as the computer processed. That can't be right, he muttered. These coordinates lead to the void sectors. Nothing's out there except radiation and debris from the fracture war. No habitable systems for light years. He was certain, I insisted. He said it's where the answers are about what Nera is, what she might become. About the old tech that the consortium is trying to replicate through us. Dane studied the star chart thoughtfully. Well, it's not like we have a wealth of options right now. The consortium will have alerts at every registered port, and the Wayfarer needs repairs before we attempt any long-range jumps. He pointed to a small system near the edge of known space. We'll stop here first. Oro Station. It's a salvage outpost, minimal official presence. We can make repairs, stock up on supplies, and figure out our next move. I nodded, relief washing through me. Thank you. He waved it away, uncomfortable with gratitude. Don't thank me yet. We've got a long way to go and some very powerful enemies. He stood stretching. You should get some rest. I'll set course for Oros. As I rose to leave, he added casually, by the way, that bypass you rigged in the engine room shouldn't have worked. The systems aren't compatible. Most engineers would say it's impossible. I tensed, waiting for the questions, the suspicion. Instead, he smiled, a genuine smile that softened his weathered features. Good thing I didn't hire most engineers. Over the next few days, life aboard the Wayfarer settled into an unexpected rhythm. Dane taught Nera simple piloting concepts, letting her help navigate through empty sectors. Taro, despite his initial security concerns, developed what could only be described as a protective attachment to my daughter, following her around the ship and answering her endless questions with mechanical patience. And I fixed things. Not just the thermal regulator or the damaged systems from our escape, but a dozen other issues that had been neglected for years. The ship's systems spoke to me in ways I couldn't fully explain to others. I could feel the imbalances, the strained connections, the parts that suffered silently. It was during one of these repair sessions that Dane found me half inside a ventilation shaft rewiring a malfunctioning air purifier. You know, he remarked, leaning against the bulkhead, most people would take a day off after escaping a heavily armed pursuit team. I slid out from the shaft, wiping sweat from my brow. I'm not most people. Clearly, he handed me a canteen of water. You've done more for this ship in 3 days than my last mechanic did in 6 months. I drank gratefully. Your last mechanic probably couldn't hear the systems crying out for help. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Dane's eyebrows rose slightly, but he didn't seem shocked or repulsed, just curious. Is that what it's like for you? You hear them? I hesitated, then nodded. Not exactly hear, more like feel. The consortium designed us to interface with technology on an intuitive level, to understand machines the way you understand your own body. I tapped my temple. The neural pathways they built into us translate mechanical functions into sensations we can interpret. And Nera goes deeper. I can sense what's wrong with existing systems. Nera can communicate with them, sometimes control them without traditional interfaces. I looked down at my hands. That's why she's so valuable to them. The perfect bridge between organic life and machine. Dane was quiet for a moment, processing. Is it painful, this connection? The question caught me off guard. No one had ever asked about pain before only capability, function, output. Sometimes, when systems are badly damaged or in conflict, it's like a headache that gets worse the closer I am. For Nera, it's more intense. She gets overwhelmed easily by complex technology. He nodded thoughtfully. That explains why she settles down in the cargo hold when she gets too wired. Minimal systems there. I smiled, touched that he'd noticed such a detail about my daughter. You're very observant, Captain. Dane, he corrected. We're being chased across the galaxy together. Might as well use my name. There was something in his tone, something warm that I hadn't heard directed at me in a very long time. I felt a strange flutter in my chest and quickly turned back to the ventilation shaft. We'll reach Oro Station tomorrow, Dane continued. It's not exactly a luxury destination, but we should be able to get what we need without too many questions. Will it be safe? I asked, the familiar worry creeping back. Relatively. It's run by Choice, the Salvagers Guild. They don't much care for consortium authority. Still, you and Nera should stay aboard while I handle the transactions. He hesitated. You might want to consider some way to cover those markings on your arms. Just in case. I nodded, already dreading the confinement, but knowing he was right. Has Taro found any tracking devices? Nothing yet, which is strange. He frowned. The consortium must have some way of following us. A cold fear settled in my stomach. There was something I hadn't told him, something I'd been afraid to admit. Dane, there's something you should know about Nera. His expression grew serious. I'm listening. The dreams she mentioned, they're not just dreams. The consortium created a sort of neural network between all their prototypes. It was meant to share data, improve our functionality, but it works both ways. I swallowed hard. They might be using it to track her consciousness, especially during sleep cycles. Understanding dawned on his face. That's why you've been staying awake while she sleeps. I nodded wearily. I've been trying to monitor her, wake her if she seems too deep in the network. But I can't stay awake forever. Dane was quiet for a long moment, then said decisively, we'll take shifts, you, me, and Taro, 8 hours each. No one's getting to her without going through all of us first. The simple offer of help, of shared responsibility, nearly undid me. I blinked rapidly against the sudden burn of tears. You barely know us, I said, my voice embarrassingly unsteady. Why would you do all this? Dane's gaze was steady, his voice quiet but firm. Because it's the right thing to do, because no one has the right to own another person. And because that little girl deserves a chance to be more than someone's experiment. He said it so simply, as if the moral calculation was obvious, as if risking his life, his ship, and his freedom for strangers was the only reasonable choice. In that moment, I understood what made humans so unpredictable, so dangerous, and so valuable in this cold universe. They still had the capacity to be guided by something beyond self-interest, beyond logic, beyond the careful equations of risk and reward that govern most species. The consortium had tried to engineer the perfect synthesis of biological intuition and technological precision. They'd created me, created Nera, controlled every aspect of our design. But they could never create what stood before me now. A being who would risk everything for strangers simply because it was right. A heart that defied calculation. Before I could respond, the ship's alarm system blared to life. Red emergency lights bathed the corridor as Taro's voice came over the comm system. Captain, unidentified vessel approaching at high velocity. Weapon systems active, impact in 3 minutes. Dane was already moving, gesturing for me to follow. So much for our head start. As we raced toward the bridge, a sickening realization washed over me. I wasn't just putting myself and Nera in danger now. I dragged this man, this inexplicably kind human, into our nightmare. Dane, I called as we ran, I'm sorry, I never meant for you to. He cut me off with a sharp look. Not your fault. My ship, my choice. His expression softened slightly. Besides, it's been at least a week since someone tried to kill me. Was starting to get bored. Despite everything, I found myself smiling at his grim humor. We burst onto the bridge to find Taro at the tactical station and Nera huddled in the corner, her small face pale with fear. Mommy! She ran to me and I scooped her up, holding her tight. Pursuit vessel confirmed as consortium design, Taro reported. Designated hunter class. Heavily armed. Our defensive capabilities are insufficient for direct confrontation. Dane slid into the pilot's seat, hands flying across the controls. Then we won't confront them. Sera, get nearer to your quarters and strap in. This is going to get rough. I hesitated, torn between protecting my daughter and helping defend the ship. Go, Dane urged. We've got this. Right, Taro. The android's optical sensors flashed. Statistically, our survival probability is 27%. See better odds than usual. Dane's focus was already on the navigation system. Now go. I ran with Nera to our quarters, securing her in the safety harness built into the bunk. Stay here, little star. Don't move until I come for you. Her eyes were wide with fear, but also understanding beyond her years. They found me in the dreams, didn't they? I'm sorry, Mommy. My heart broke at the guilt in her small voice. No, sweetheart. This isn't your fault. I pressed my forehead to hers. None of this is your fault. The ship lurched violently as Dane executed evasive maneuvers. I kissed Nera's forehead quickly. Be brave. I need to help the captain. Instead of returning to the bridge, I raced to the engine room. If we were going to outrun a hunter-class vessel, the Wayfarer would need every ounce of power I could squeeze from her aging systems. The ship shuddered as the first shots from the pursuit vessel grazed our shields. Warning lights flashed across every console hole. The FTL drive was already redlining, pushed to its limits by Dane's desperate maneuvers. I placed my hands directly on the engine core housing, closing my eyes to better feel the flow of energy, the strained connections, the potential pathways. In the consortium labs, they'd made me do this thousands of times, interface directly with systems, push them beyond their designed limits, extract every last bit of performance. It had always been in service of their goals. Now finally it would serve mine. I opened neural pathways I usually kept firmly closed, letting the engine's energy patterns flow through my modified nervous system. Pain flared immediately, bright hot, overwhelming, but I pushed through it, redirecting power, bypassing safeguards, channeling energy from non-essential systems. The ship responded, her engines singing a higher, more dangerous note as power surged through them. The pain intensified, electricity crackling along my neural implants, but I held the connection, my body becoming the conduit between the ship's disparate systems. Over the comm, I heard Dane's surprised exclamation as the Wayfarer suddenly leapt forward with unexpected speed. "What the Sera? What did you do?" I couldn't answer, couldn't break concentration without risking a catastrophic system collapse. Black spots danced at the edges of my vision as the neural feedback threatened to overwhelm me. But I held on, kept the pathways open, felt the pursuing ship falling behind as we pushed deeper into the asteroid field Dane had steered us toward. I don't know how long I maintained the connection, time lost meaning in the storm of data and pain. But eventually I felt a hand on my shoulder pulling me back, breaking my direct link to the engine core. "Sera, Sera, stop! We're clear!" Dane's voice seemed to come from very far away. "They can't follow us through the asteroid field at this speed. You need to stop now." I collapsed against him, trembling violently as my nervous system struggled to reset. My vision swam and I tasted blood where I'd bitten through my lip without realizing it. "Did we escape?" I managed through chattering teeth. "Yes." His voice was tight with concern as he lowered me gently to the deck. "What the hell was that?" "You're burning up." I tried to explain, but the words wouldn't come. The neural backlash was worse than I'd anticipated. It had been years since I'd interfaced so deeply with a system. Dane's face blurred above me as consciousness began to slip away. The last thing I heard was his voice calling urgently for Taro to bring medical supplies. My last thought before darkness claimed me was a bitter irony. I had finally found someone willing to help us, and now I might die before I could thank him properly. I woke to the soft beeping of medical monitoring equipment and the low hum of the Wayfarer's engines, a gentler, steadier sound than the strained roar I remembered from our desperate escape. "The Sleeping Beauty awakens." Dane's voice came from nearby. I turned my head to see him sitting beside the medical cot, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept much. "Nera," my voice was a hoarse whisper. "Fine. Currently teaching Taro how to play some game involving imaginary tea and very real engine parts. I'd prefer stayed attached to my ship." He helped me sit up, offering a cup of water. "You, on the other hand, have been unconscious for 26 hours. I drank gratefully, wincing at the lingering neural pain that made even this small movement difficult. "I'm sorry, I should have warned you about the backlash effects." "Yes, you should have." His tone was mild, but his eyes were serious. "Taro says your neural readings were off the charts. The kind of patterns that cause permanent brain damage in normal subjects." "I'm not normal," I reminded him. "Clearly, but even you have limits, Sera." He ran a hand through his disheveled hair, a gesture I was beginning to recognize as a sign of stress. "What exactly did you do back there?" I set the cup down carefully. "Direct neural interface with the engine core. It lets me bypass the usual control systems, optimize energy flow in real time, and nearly cook your brain in the process." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Look, I appreciate the save. We definitely wouldn't have outrun them without that burst of speed. But if helping us means killing yourself, that's not a trade I'm willing to make." The intensity in his voice caught me off guard. It had been so long since anyone had shown concern for my well-being, not as a valuable asset, but as a person. "I didn't know what else to do," I admitted. "They were going to catch us. And now they're not, but we have a new problem." He tapped his wrist display, bringing up a navigational chart. "That asteroid field you helped us escape through. We're now on the wrong side of it. And with the drive system currently cooling down from whatever you did to it, We can't go back the way we came. I studied the chart immediately, seeing the problem. The asteroid field created a natural barrier between us and our intended destination of Oro Station. The only way forward now was deeper into the void sectors, directly toward the mysterious coordinates Nera's father had provided. "So we're going to the ancient tech hub after all," I said. Dane nodded grimly. "Seems the universe has made that decision for us. Question is, what are we going to find there? Because right now we're low on supplies, running on auxiliary power, and heading into the most notorious dead zone in the galaxy." I should have felt terrified. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. He wouldn't have sent us there if there wasn't something worth finding, something that could help Nera, or something the consortium is desperate to keep hidden. Dane's expression was thoughtful. Hunter-class vessels don't come cheap. Whoever's after you has serious resources and doesn't mind spending them. A shiver ran through me that had nothing to do with my physical condition. Commander Ven, he's the head of the Reclamation Division. After Nera's father helped us escape, Ven took over the project. I swallowed hard, pushing back ugly memories. He doesn't see us as people, not even as valuable property. To him, we're just proof of concept, data points. Dane's jaw tightened. Sounds like a real charmer. Well, he'll never stop hunting us, not until he has Nera back in his lab. Well, he'll have to go through me first. The simple declaration was made without drama, just a statement of absolute fact. And I'm notoriously difficult to go through. I studied this human who had so unexpectedly become our protector. The weariness in his eyes spoke of old battles, the faint scars on his hands of hard-won experience. There was a history there, painful, I suspected, that had forged this remarkable capacity for empathy toward strangers. "Why are you really doing this, Dane?" I asked softly. The truth this time. His eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw past the casual bravado to something raw underneath. Maybe I'm trying to balance some scales. Make up for times I couldn't help when I should have. Before I could press further, the medical bay door slid open and Nera burst in, Taro following close behind. "Mommy, you're awake." She scrambled onto the cot beside me, small arms wrapping around my neck. "I was so worried. Captain Dane said you were sleeping extra because you made the ship go super fast to save us from the bad men." I hugged her close, breathing in her familiar scent. "I'm fine now, little star, just tired." Taro stepped forward, optical sensors scanning me. "Your neural patterns have stabilized, but I detect lingering inflammation in your cerebral cortex. I recommend continued rest and minimal system interaction for at least 72 hours. "Thanks, Doctor," Dane said dryly. "Why don't you take Nera to the mess hall for that snack you promised her? Sera and I need to discuss our next move." The android hesitated, then extended his hand to Nera. "Come, small human. Nutritional supplements are required for optimal function." Surprisingly, Nera went willingly, her small hand in Taro's metallic one. The trust she developed for the android in such a short time was remarkable and slightly concerning, given her history of attaching to anything with a complex electronic signature. Once they were gone, Dane helped me to my feet. "Think you can make it to the bridge? There's something you should see." I nodded, though the room spun briefly as I stood. Dane's arm slipped around my waist, supporting me as we made our way slowly through the corridors. The bridge was dimly lit, main systems in power conservation mode. Through the viewport, I could see the edge of the asteroid field we'd navigated through a distant band of tumbling rocks against the void of space. But it wasn't the view that Dane had brought me to see. On the main display was a scan of the region ahead of us, the direction of the ancient tech hub coordinates. Most of it registered as empty space, occasional debris, nothing unusual for the void sectors. "Except for one thing. Do you see it?" Daneford asked, enhancing a particular section of the scan. I leaned closer, squinting at what appeared to be a subtle distortion in the void. Not a planet or station, something less substantial, like a ripple in reality itself. "What is that?" "According to the ship's sensors, nothing at all." He tapped the display, bringing up diagnostic information. "But when I recalibrated to search for quantum disturbances," the image shifted, and suddenly the ripple blossomed into a complex pattern of energy signatures, faint but unmistakably artificial. "It's cloaked," I breathed. "Not just visually, but across all standard detection spectrums." Dane nodded. "Technology way beyond anything I've seen before. Beyond consortium level, beyond even Marothi military grade." "The ancient tech," I whispered. "It's real." "Looks that way." He studied the readout with a mixture of fascination and wariness. Question is it a sanctuary or a trap? The question hung between us, unanswerable. Nera's father had believed it was our salvation worth dying for, but he'd also been part of the program that had created us in the first place. We have to try, I said finally, even if it's dangerous. There are answers there about what Nera is, what she might become. Dane was quiet for a moment, then nodded. We'll reach those coordinates in approximately 17 hours, assuming the engine core cools enough for standard operation. He gave me a stern look, which means no more neural interfaces. We'll get there the old-fashioned way or not at all. Agreed, I said quickly, the lingering pain in my nervous system making the promise easy to keep. As we stood there staring at the mysterious energy pattern that might hold the key to our future, Dane's hand found mine. It was a brief touch, reassuring, perhaps unconscious on his part, but it sent a different kind of electricity through my system. Whatever we find there, he said quietly, we face it together. It was such a simple statement, but it hit me with unexpected force. Together. How long had it been since I'd had someone to stand with? Since I'd faced danger with an ally rather than alone? I looked at this human who had upended every belief I'd held about his species, about all species, who had taken in strangers, defied authorities, and was now willingly flying into the unknown, all to help a mother and child he barely knew. The consortium had created me to be the perfect interface between organic life and machine, but they had never accounted for another kind of connection, one that couldn't be engineered, couldn't be predicted or controlled. As we charted our course into the heart of the void sectors, toward whatever waited for us at the ancient tech hub, I realized with startling clarity that I wasn't just bringing Nera toward potential answers about her future. I was moving towards something I'd never dared hope for myself, the possibility of belonging, of trust, of not being alone. And that was more terrifying and more exhilarating than any pursuit vessel the consortium could send after us. If you've felt your heart race during Sera and Dane's daring escape, just imagine what waits for them at the mysterious ancient tech hub. Will they find sanctuary or stumble into an even greater danger? And what secrets about Nera will be revealed? Hit that subscribe button now to make sure you don't miss the next chapter of their journey across the stars. And drop a comment below with your theories about what the ancient tech might be. I read every single one and love hearing your ideas. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next part of Humanity's Chance. Approaching anomaly perimeter. Taro announced, his mechanical voice echoing through the Wayfarer's Bridge. Estimated arrival in 5 minutes. I stood silently beside Dane at the main viewport, watching as the stars ahead of us seemed to waver, like looking through heat rising from scorched earth. The distortion we detected earlier had grown more pronounced as we approached, spreading across our field of vision like ripples in dark water. Still nothing on standard sensors, Dane murmured, eyes fixed on the readouts. If I hadn't recalibrated for quantum fluctuations, that we'd fly right past it without ever knowing it was there. That's the point, I said quietly. The ancients didn't want to be found. Nera pressed her small body against my side, unusually subdued. Since waking that morning, she'd been withdrawn. Her usual chatter replaced by watchful silence. When I'd asked what was wrong, she'd only shaken her head and whispered, "The quiet is loud here, Mommy." I knew what she meant. The closer we got to the anomaly, the more I felt it too, a strange pressure at the base of my skull, like background noise just below the threshold of hearing. Not painful, but increasingly impossible to ignore. "Dane," I said, keeping my voice low, "I think we should prepare for the possibility that the cloaking field might affect ship systems. Or us." He glanced at me sharply. "You're feeling something already?" I nodded. "It's interfacing it with our neural modification somehow. Nera feels it more strongly than I do." Dane crouched down to Nera's level. "Hey kiddo, what exactly does it feel like to you?" She considered the question with childish seriousness. "Like when you put your ear against the engine and it hums but inside my head instead." She frowned. "And like it's trying to talk to me, but I don't know the words yet." At God, Dane and I exchanged concerned looks. "Terobam," Dane called, "run a full diagnostic on Nera's neural readings. Compare to baseline from 3 days ago." The android stepped forward, optical sensors scanning my daughter. Neural activity increased by 27%. Unusual activity in the temporal lobe and hippocampus. Patterns consistent with deep information processing. "Is it harmful?" I asked, fighting to keep the fear from my voice. Unknown, Taro replied. No signs of distress and vital markers, heart rate and respiration normal. Dane straightened his expression, thoughtful rather than alarmed. Maybe this is supposed to happen. Maybe it's recognizing it's her. Or targeting her, us calmer. I countered. If they wanted to harm her, they could have designed a weapon, not whatever this is. He gestured to the viewport. This is communication, recognition. Before I could respond, the ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring across every console. The viewport filled with rippling energy as we breached the outer boundary of the anomaly. Multiple systems failing. Taro reported, his voice rising in mechanical distress. Power fluctuations across all decks. Navigation offline, shields offline. Dane lunged for the manual controls, fighting to stabilize our trajectory as the ship bucked and shuddered. Engines to minimum auxiliary power to life support only. I grabbed Nera, holding her tightly as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Around us, the Wayfarer's systems flickered and died, plunging the bridge into darkness for several terrifying seconds before emergency lighting bathed everything in dim red. And then as suddenly as it began, the violent turbulence ceased. The ship drifted smoothly, all systems silent. Through the viewport, I could see only darkness, not the familiar void of space with its distant stars, but a complete enveloping blackness. What happened? I whispered. Where are we between? Nera said softly. We're between. Before I could ask what she meant, the darkness outside began to change. Pinpoints of light appeared not like stars, but like data nodes in a vast three-dimensional network. They multiplied rapidly, connecting with lines of soft blue energy until the entire viewport was filled with an intricate web of light. Oh my God, Dane breathed. Dane. Taro, are you seeing this? The android stood motionless, his optical sensors fixed on the display, analyzing, pattern matching no known stellar formation or artificial construct in database. The web of light pulsed once, twice, and then a pathway formed directly ahead of us, a tunnel of connected nodes leading deeper into the structure. I believe, Taro said, we are being invited inside. Dane's hands hovered over the manual controls. Zuri, your call. We can try to turn back, or we can follow where it leads. I looked down at Nera, who was staring transfixed at the pathway of light. What do you think, the little star? Is it safe? She nodded without hesitation. It's where Daddy wanted us to go. It's waiting for us. The simple, childish certainty in her voice decided me. Follow the path. Dane nodded gently, easing the ship forward along the illuminated corridor. As we moved, the web of light seemed to respond to our presence, nodes brightening as we passed, new connections forming and dissolving in our wake. It's adaptive, I murmured, responding to us in real time. Not to us, Dane corrected quietly, to her. He was right. The pattern of lights changed most dramatically near Nera, creating complex configurations that mirrored her movements when she reached toward the viewport. Mommy, she said, eyes wide with wonder rather than fear. It's like the dreams, but I'm awake. We followed the light path for what felt like hours but might have been minutes. Time seemed strangely fluid here. The Wayfarer systems gradually returned to life, but the navigational displays showed nothing but error messages. According to the ship's computers, we didn't exist anywhere in known space. Finally, the pathway opened into a vast spherical chamber of light. At its center floated what appeared to be an actual structure, a massive crystalline station, its architecture unlike anything I'd ever seen. Not the sleek lines of consortium design or the brutalist efficiency of Marothi construction, but something organic yet geometrically perfect, as if grown rather than built. The ancient tech hub, I whispered. As if in response to the words, a beam of light extended from the station toward our ship, not a weapon, but a guide path, a docking invitation. Well, Dane said with forced lightness, we didn't come all this way to admire it from a distance. He piloted the Wayfarer carefully along the beam until we reached the station. A section of the crystalline surface parted silently, revealing a docking bay perfectly sized for our vessel. With gentle precision, Dane eased the ship inside, where gravity immediately took hold, settling us onto a gleaming platform. The crystal walls sealed behind us, and atmosphere readings on the console immediately registered as breathable. Now what? Dane looked to me, eyebrows raised. Before I could answer, every screen on the bridge lit up simultaneously with the same message, simple text in an ancient Telosian dialect I barely recognized, second generation detected. Proceed to central chamber for evaluation. It knows what Nera is, I said, a chill running through me despite the wonder of our surroundings. Evaluation. Dane repeated, not liking the sound of it. That could mean anything from a friendly chat to dissection. We've come too far to turn back now. I took a deep breath. Taro should stay with the ship, keep it ready for immediate departure if necessary. Agreed. Dane checked his sidearm, a precaution that seemed almost quaint against the advanced technology surrounding us, but I found the gesture reassuring nonetheless. Nera, however, shook her head firmly. Taro comes too. He's part of us now. Dane and I exchanged surprised glances at her insistence. It wasn't like Nera to be so assertive. The child is correct, Taro said, his voice different, somehow less mechanical, more aware. I am detecting unusual access protocols activating within my systems. This station appears to be communicating with me. That settled it. Whatever awaited us in the station clearly involved all of us, human android, and our genetically modified selves. We disembarked together, stepping onto the crystal platform of the docking bay. The air smelled clean but strange, not sterile like a consortium facility, but alive somehow with subtle notes I couldn't identify. A pathway illuminated before us, similar to the one that had guided our ship. We followed it through corridors that seemed to shift and reconfigure around us, opening into chambers filled with technology, so advanced it appeared magical, then closing again as we passed. This place is alive, Dane murmured, watching as a wall rippled like water to create a doorway for us. The whole station is one integrated system. It's beautiful, Nera said, reaching out to touch a crystal pillar. Where her fingers made contact, the material glowed brighter patterns, spreading outward like ripples. Finally, the pathway led us to massive doors that parted at our approach, revealing the central chamber, a vast circular space dominated by a column of pulsing blue energy that stretched from floor to ceiling. Around it, holographic displays flickered with data streams too rapid to follow. As we entered, the entire chamber seemed to come alive, the energy column brightening the displays, focusing and slowing their data scroll. A voice spoke, not from any visible source, but seemingly from the air itself, resonating in a language I almost understood. Nera answered immediately in the same language, the words flowing from her as naturally as breathing. "You speak this?" I asked, astonished. She nodded. "From the dreams. It's saying welcome home." Home. The word sent a pang through me, a concept so foreign I'd almost forgotten its meaning. 3 platforms rose from the floor before us. One crystal, one metal, one with a strange organic texture. "It wants us to stand on them," Nera explained. "You on the crystal one, Mommy. Captain Dane on the middle one, Taro on the other one." Dane looked skeptical. "And then, what happens?" Nera frowned in concentration as the voice spoke again. "It says, evaluation, to see if we're ready." "Ready for what?" I asked. "To know the truth." We each moved to our designated platforms with varying degrees of hesitation. As soon as I stepped onto the crystal surface, it illuminated beneath my feet, sending warmth spreading through my body. I saw the same happen with Dane and Taro on their respective platforms. The energy column pulsed once, twice, 3 times, and then expanded, engulfing us in gentle blue light. I felt no fear, only a strange sense of recognition, as if part of me had always known this place. Images began to form in the light around us, not projections, but something more immersive, like memories made visible. I saw a civilization at its peak, beings of light and matter, combined masters of technology, so advanced it transcended physical limitations. I saw their achievements, their cities that spanned dimensions, their harmony with the universe itself. And then I saw their fall, not through war or natural disaster, but through hubris. They had reached too far, tempted to harness energies beyond even their understanding. The resulting catastrophe had shattered their civilization, fracturing reality itself in what later species would call the fracture war. The survivors had retreated to hidden outposts like this one, preserving their own knowledge while watching the younger species evolve. Occasionally, they guided, subtly introducing concepts when cultures were ready. And they had left behind safeguards protocols to recognize when a species began approaching the same dangerous threshold they had crossed. The consortium's genetic experiments with technological integration had triggered those protocols. They had been monitoring, evaluating. The final image showed a laboratory, one I recognized with a jolt of horror. Naira's father standing over a genetic sequencer, deliberately altering test results, hiding the true nature of what he had helped create. As the vision faded, we found ourselves back in the chamber, but we were no longer alone. A figure stood before us, not solid, but not quite holographic either. It resembled a Telosian in basic form, but made of the same crystalline light as the station itself. "Greetings, second generation," it said in perfectly understandable speech. "I am Keeper Guardian of this sanctuary." Nera stepped forward without fear. "You know what I am." "Yes, child. You are both less and more than what your creators intended." The Keeper's gaze shifted to me. They saw all they bought to create an interface between organic and synthetic. They did not realize they were recreating something that once existed naturally. "The ancients," I whispered. "You were like us. We were what you might become given in the proper path. A union of consciousness and technology, not as master and tool, but as integrated aspects of the same being." The Keeper's expression turned somber. "But such evolution must occur naturally over millennia. The consortium seeks to force it in generations. The results are unstable." My heart clenched. "Unstable, what does that mean for Nera?" The Keeper regarded my daughter with what seemed like compassion. "The child's neural patterns are degrading. The synthetic components cannot be sustained by her organic structure. Without intervention, her systems will fail within 1 standard year." The words hit me like a physical blow. I staggered back, would have fallen if Dane hadn't steadied me with a hand on my arm. "No," I whispered. "There must be something you can do, some way to help her." "That is why you were guided here," the Keeper confirmed. "We have been monitoring the consortium's work for decades. When we detected the emergence of a viable second-generation hybrid, we began preparations." "Preparations for what?" Dane asked, speaking for the first time since the visions. "For integration," the Keeper replied. "The child's consciousness can be transferred to a suitable vessel, one designed to accommodate both her organic and synthetic aspects." "You want to put my daughter in a machine?" I stepped forward, anger overriding fear. "That's not saving her, that's..." "Not a machine," the Keeper interrupted gently. "A body, grown from her own genetic material, but stabilized with our technology. She would remain herself with all her memories, personality abilities. But she would be able to survive." Hope and terror warred within me. Has this been done before successfully? 3 times in the past millennium, all subjects survived and thrived. I looked at Nera, who had been listening to this exchange with unnerving calmness for a 5-year-old. "Do you understand what they're saying, little star?" She nodded solemnly. "They want to give me a new body because mine is breaking." She tilted her head, considering this with childish directness. "Will it hurt?" "No, child," the Keeper assured her. "You would sleep and awaken renewed." "How long would this procedure take?" Dane asked, his hand still on my arm, grounding me. 3 standard days for growth and preparation. The transfer itself is near instantaneous. 3 days. In the sanctuary of this hidden station, it seemed possible. But there was one crucial factor the Keeper hadn't accounted for. "The consortium is hunting us," I said. "They've tracked us across multiple systems already. If they followed us here, they cannot penetrate our defenses," the Keeper stated with quiet confidence. "The quantum distortion field that surrounds this sector renders us invisible to their technology." "But they tracked us through Nera's dreams," I insisted. "Through the neural network they built into us." For the first time, the Keeper showed something like surprise. "This is concerning. Our barriers should prevent such connections." A chill ran through me. Unless they found a way to use ancient technology themselves. The Keeper was silent for a long moment, light patterns shifting across his form as it processed this possibility. "If true, this represents a grave threat not just to you, but to all the knowledge preserved here. We must investigate." It gestured, and a new holographic display appeared, showing a complex network of energy signatures. "These are the quantum barriers surrounding the sanctuary. They appear intact, but..." The display zoomed in on one section, revealing a subtle distortion, a barely perceptible weakening in the field. "There," the Keeper said, voice grave, "a breach attempt is in progress. Sophisticated, targeted." Dane stepped forward, studying the display. "How long until they break through?" "At current rate of penetration, 47 hours. Not enough time, I whispered. Not enough time for Nera's new body to be prepared. Not enough time to save her. But Dane's expression had shifted to one of determined calculation. What if we could buy you more time, disrupt their approach somehow? The keeper considered this. Possible. The breach point indicates they are utilizing a modified quantum resonance device. If disrupted, their progress would be significantly delayed. Then that's what we'll do, Dane said firmly. Sera and I will take the Wayfarer and intercept them. Create a distraction. Buy you the time you need. I stared at him in disbelief. You want to attack a consortium vessel? That's suicide. Uswa. Not attack, distract. We don't need to defeat them, just delay them. His eyes held mine, intensity burning in their blue depths. It's Nera's only chance, Sera. The truth of his words hit me with terrible clarity. My daughter was dying. This sanctuary offered her only hope of survival, and the consortium was about to take even that away. I turned to the keeper. If we leave Nera here, can you protect her? Begin the procedure while we're gone. Yes, she will be safe in our care. And Taro at Bam, the keeper added, turning to the android. Would you choose to remain as well? Your systems show remarkable compatibility with our technology. We could offer enhancements. Taro's optical sensors flickered. Captain, Dane nodded. Your choice, Taro. But honestly, we could use your help protecting Nera. Then I will stay, the android decided. My primary function is to preserve life. The child's survival takes priority. Decision-made events moved quickly. The keeper led Nera and Taro to what it called the Genesis Chamber, where the growth of Nera's new body would begin. I had precious few moments to say goodbye to my daughter. I knelt before her, holding her small hands in mine. You'll be safe here, little star. The keeper will watch over you until I return. With Captain Dane, she added, not a question of certainty. Yes, with Captain Dane. I brushed a strand of silvery hair from her face. Be brave. Do everything the keeper tells you. I'm not scared, Mommy. Her eyes, too old for her years, met mine. The station likes me, and Taro will stay with me. He tells good stories. I hugged her tightly, breathing in her scent, memorizing the feel of her in my arms. I love you more than anything in this universe. Remember that. I love you too, Mommy. She pulled back her small face, solemn. You have to go now. The bad men are getting closer. With a final kiss to her forehead, I let her go, watching as Taro took her hand and followed the keeper deeper into the station. Every instinct screamed at me to stay with her, to never let her out of my sight again. But staying meant losing her forever. Leaving meant giving her a chance. Dane and I returned to the Wayfarer in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. It wasn't until we were back on the bridge preparing for departure that he finally spoke. We'll come back for her, Sera. I promise you that. I nodded, unable to trust my voice, focusing instead on the navigational console. The keeper had provided us with the exact coordinates of the breach attempt, a point just outside the quantum distortion field where the consortium vessel was attempting to force entry. How exactly do you plan to distract a heavily armed consortium ship? I asked finally. Dane's hands moved steadily over the controls, initiating launch sequence. We need something big enough to disrupt their quantum resonance device, something that would force them to retreat and regroup. Like what the Wayfarer's weapon systems are barely functional, and even if they were, they wouldn't dent a Hunter-class vessel's shields. A small, grim smile curved his lips. Who said anything about weapons? He tapped a specific section of the ship's schematics on the display. That bypass you created for the thermal regulator. With some modifications, we could use it to trigger a controlled overload in the FTL core. I stared at him, understanding dawning. You want to create a quantum pulse wave? Exactly. Not enough to destroy us, but enough to fry their sensitive equipment and force them to retreat for repairs. That's incredibly dangerous, I said, even as I began mentally calculating the necessary adjustments. We'd have to time it perfectly, get close enough for the pulse to disrupt the resonator, but far enough away to escape the backlash. Can you do it? Could I? It would require precise manipulation of systems that were already jury-rigged, risk-taking beyond anything I'd attempted before. If it failed, we'd either be destroyed in the explosion or left drifting helplessly for the consortium to capture. But if it worked, yes, I said, decision made. I can do it. The Wayfarer lifted smoothly from the docking platform, the crystalline bay opening to release us back into the web of light. The Keeper had provided a safe passage through the quantum field, a temporary corridor that would allow us out without disrupting the barriers. As we navigated through the luminous network following the path that would lead us to our confrontation with the consortium, I found myself studying Dane's profile in the glow from the console. The determined set of his jaw, the steady hands on the controls, the quiet confidence in his every movement. "You don't have to do this," I said softly. "This isn't your fight. You could drop me at the breach point and leave, find somewhere safe." He didn't look away from the controls, but his voice was firm. "Is that what you think I am? Someone who runs when things get difficult?" "No, but this isn't just difficult, it's possibly suicidal." "And for what? A woman and child you've known for days." This time he did turn blue eyes, meeting mine with an intensity that took my breath away. "For a woman and child who deserve a chance at freedom. For a little girl who calls me Captain Dane like it means something anyway. For the right to choose your own destiny." He paused, something vulnerable flashing across his features. "And because, for the first time in a very long time, I have something worth fighting for." The simple honesty in his words struck me to my core. In the consortium, I'd been property. Among refugees, I'd been a burden. Even Nera's father, for all his eventual help, had first seen me as an experiment, a success to be measured and recorded. Dane Korran saw me as a person, saw Nera as a child worth saving, not for her values as a technological breakthrough, but for her right to exist on her own terms. In that moment, I realized a truth I'd been avoiding since he first extended his hand to us at the spaceport. I was falling in love with this impossible human. This man who defied every cynical lesson the universe had taught me about people and their motivations. And I was about to risk both our lives on a desperate gamble. "Approaching quantum field boundary," Dane announced, pulling me from my thoughts. "Consortium vessel should be just ahead." The view screen shifted to tactical display, showing the edge of the distortion field, and beyond it the ominous silhouette of a Hunter-class ship. Larger than the Wayfarer by several factors, bristling with weapon systems, its sleek design unmistakably consortium. "They haven't detected us yet," I noted, watching the sensor readouts. "The field is masking our approach." "Perfect. We'll get as close as possible before they realize we're here." Dane's hands danced over the controls, plotting our trajectory. "I need you in the engine room. Start the overload sequence on my mark." I nodded, rising from my seat, but hesitated before leaving the bridge. There was so much to say and suddenly so little time to say it. "Dane," I began, not even sure what would follow. He looked up, something soft in his expression, despite the tension of the moment. "I know," he said simply. "Me too." It wasn't a declaration, barely even an acknowledgement, but in that moment it was enough. I made my way quickly to the engine room, mind already racing through the complex sequence of adjustments needed to create a controlled overload. It would be delicate work pushing the systems to the brink without sending them over. "In position," Dane's voice came through the comm. "They've spotted us. Weapons systems powering up." "Ready when you are," I replied, hands hovering over the engine controls. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." I plunged into the work, fingers flying across controls, bypassing safety systems, redirecting power flows. The engine core began to glow with dangerous intensity, temperature gauges climbing into the red. Warning alarms blared, but I shut them out, focused entirely on the precise dance of energy and matter. The ship shuddered as the first shots from the consortium vessel struck our shields. "Shields at 60%, Dane called. "How much longer?" "Almost there." The core was reaching critical levels now, the energy buildup approaching the threshold where controlled release would become catastrophic failure. 30 seconds. Another impact, more violent this time. Direct hit shields at 40%. The tension in Dane's voice was palpable. "We need that pulse now, Sera." 10 seconds. The core was pulsing now, the light almost blinded. I made the final adjustments, preparing the release vector that would direct the energy outward toward the consortium ship, rather than back into our own systems. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I slammed the final control down and the world went white. The pulse wave erupted from the Wayfarer's core, energy cascading outward in a perfect sphere. For a terrible moment, I thought I'd miscalculated, that we'd be consumed in our own creation. But the wave passed through the ship's systems with only a minor disruption, momentarily flickering our lights and gravity before continuing outward directly toward the consortium vessel. Through the engine room viewport, I watched with grim satisfaction as the wave hit our pursuers. The effect was immediate and devastating. Their shields flickered and died. Power systems visibly failed across the massive ship's sections, going dark in sequence. The quantum resonance device they'd been using to breach the sanctuary's defenses overloaded spectacularly, a secondary explosion blossoming from their aft section. It worked. Dane's triumphant voice filled the calm. They're dead in space, all systems down. Relief washed through me so intense it made my knees weak. How long until they can restore power? Hours at least, maybe days for full functionality. We did it, Sera. We bought Nera the time she needs. Well, I allowed myself a moment of pure joy before reality reasserted itself. We need to get back inside the quantum field before they recover enough to pursue. Already on it, setting course for the sanctuary entrance point. Meet me on the bridge. I was halfway to the door when the ship lurched violently, throwing me against the bulkhead. Alarm klaxons blared throughout the vessel. Dane, what happened? His voice came back tight with controlled fear. Secondary explosion on the consortium ship. Debris hit our port thruster. We're losing propulsion control. I raced to the bridge, arriving to find Dane fighting with the manual controls, trying to compensate for the damaged thruster. Through the viewport, I could see the consortium vessel listing in space, secondary explosions still rippling along its hull. But my attention was drawn to our own situation. The navigation display showing our trajectory, veering away from the sanctuary entrance toward the denser part of the quantum distortion field. Can we correct course? I asked, sliding into the co-pilot seat. Dane's expression was grim. Not enough power. The pulse wave drained more than expected. We're being pulled off course by the field's gravity well. I studied the readouts, the horrible truth becoming clear. If we enter the field at this vector, we'll be trapped, he finished. The distortions are too strong for our damaged propulsion system to overcome. We'd be stuck in the quantum limbo between normal space and the sanctuary. For a moment, neither of us spoke, the full weight of our situation settling between us. We had succeeded in our mission. The consortium ship was disabled, no longer a threat to the sanctuary or to Nera. The Keeper would have time to complete the procedure to give my daughter her new chance at life. But we would not be there to see it. There has to be another way, I said, desperation edging my voice. Some way to boost the thrusters, correct our course. Dane's eyes met mine, and I saw in them a terrible resolve. There is one way. He tapped the console, bringing up the ship's schematics, specifically the emergency protocols for the escape pod. No, I whispered, understanding immediately. Dane, no. The pod has its own propulsion system, untouched by the damage to the main ship. It's small enough, fast enough to navigate through the distortion field to the sanctuary entrance. But it only seats one. I said the words like ash in my mouth. He nodded, his expression gentle but unyielding. You go. Get back to Nera. Be there when she wakes in her new body. And leave you trapped here, no. We'll find another way. There's no other way, Sera. We have minutes before we're pulled into the distortion field. After that, we're both trapped. Neither of us gets back to Nera. The brutal logic of it struck me like a physical blow. He was right. The escape pod was the only chance for either of us to return to the sanctuary. And if only one of us could go, you should be the one, I said, the words tearing from me. You've done enough for us, more than enough. It's not fair to ask you to sacrifice everything. Dane's laugh was soft, tinged with something like wonder. Fair? What part of any of this has been fair? He reached across the space between us, his hand finding mine. Nera needs her mother. She needs you, not some human pilot she's known for a week. She cares about you too, I insisted. We both do. I know. His thumb traced a gentle pattern across my knuckles. But this is the right choice, Sera. The only choice I can live with. The ship shuddered again as the quantum field's forces pulled at us more strongly. Warning lights flashed across the console. We were running out of time. We need to move now, Dane said, standing and pulling me with him toward the escape pod bay. I've plotted the optimal trajectory through the field. The pod's navigation system will guide you the rest of the way. I followed numbly every step, feeling like a betrayal. At the pod's entrance, I turned to him one last time, searching for words that are adequate to this moment. I can't leave you, I whispered. He smiled, that same crooked smile that had first greeted us at the spaceport. Sure you can. You're the strongest person I've ever met, Sera. You survived the consortium, kept Nera safe against impossible odds. You'll survive this too. But will you? His expression softened. The Wayfarer and I have been through worse. I'll find a way out of the field eventually. And when I do, he brushed a strand of hair from my face, his touch achingly gentle. I'll come find you both. That's a promise. The ship lurched more violently, alarms intensifying. Time to go, Dane said, stepping back to secure the pod door. In that final moment, I acted on impulse, closing the distance between us and pressing my lips to his. The kiss was brief but fierce, a promise, a confession, a goodbye. When I pulled away, his eyes were bright with emotions too complex to name. Now that, he said softly, is worth finding my way back for. With one final squeeze of my hand, he sealed me into the escape pod. Through the small viewport, I watched him return to the control panel, initiating the launch sequence. Our eyes met one last time across the diminishing space as the pod disengaged from the Wayfarer. The small craft shot away from the main ship, its propulsion system immediately fighting against the quantum field's pull. Through the viewport, I watched the Wayfarer grow smaller, its lights flickering as it drifted deeper into the distortion field. Dane Korran had entered my life by chance, a rogue human pilot who took a chance on a desperate alien mother. Now he was sacrificing everything to give my daughter a future. As the escape pod navigated the treacherous currents of the quantum field following the path back to the sanctuary, I made a silent vow. I would see Nera through her transformation. I would help her adjust to her new life, her new body, and then we would find a way to rescue the man who had saved us both. Because in a universe that had shown me nothing but coldness and calculation, Dane had offered warmth and selflessness. In a society that valued property over people, he had recognized our humanity. The distortion field around the pod began to thin as we approached the sanctuary entrance. Ahead, the web of light beckoned, promising safety healing answers. Behind, somewhere in the quantum limbo, a damaged ship and a remarkable human waited. "We'll come back for you," I whispered to the stars. "I promise." The story of Sera, Nera, and Captain Dane is just beginning. What will Nera become in her new ancient crafted body, and will Sera find a way to rescue Dane from the quantum distortion field? The escape pod shuddered violently as it navigated the final barrier of the quantum field. Warning lights flashed across the small control panel. The tiny craft wasn't designed for this kind of journey, but somehow it held together, breaking through the distortion into the luminous web surrounding the ancient tech hub. Immediately, the sanctuary's guidance system locked onto the pod, a beam of light extending to draw me safely toward the crystalline station. As the automated docking sequence engaged, I pressed my hand against the viewport, looking back toward the distortion field, where the Wayfarer, where Dane had disappeared. The vast web of light that formed the sanctuary's outer structure pulsed gently, almost as if in sympathy. When the pod finally settled into the docking bay, the Keeper was waiting, its crystalline form shimmering with subdued energy. "You succeeded?" it said, not a question, but a statement. "The breach attempt has ceased." "It's at a cost," I replied, voice hollow as I stepped from the pod. "Captain Korran is trapped in the quantum field. His ship was damaged during our counterattack." The Keeper's form flickered, what I was beginning to recognize as its version of concern. "This is unfortunate. The distortion field is highly unstable. Few vessels can navigate it safely once entrapped." "But you could help him, couldn't you?" I asked, desperation edging my voice. "Your technology, your understanding of the field, there must be something you can do." "Perhaps," the Keeper acknowledged. "But our priority must remain the child's procedure. It has already begun and requires our full attention for the next 38 hours. "Nera," I breathed, momentarily ashamed that in my worry for Dane, I'd not immediately asked about my daughter. "How is she?" "The initial phase proceeds well. Her consciousness has been prepared for transfer. The new vessel grows as expected." The Keeper gestured for me to follow. "She has asked for you several times." I followed the Keeper through the shifting crystal corridors of the station, trying to focus on what mattered most: Nera's survival. Dane had sacrificed himself to ensure she would have her chance. I couldn't dishonor that sacrifice by failing her now. Still, with every step deeper into the sanctuary, I felt the weight of who I'd left behind. The Genesis chamber was unlike anything I'd ever seen. A vast, spherical room dominated by a suspension tank at its center, filled with luminous fluid that shifted through shades of blue and violet. Within the tank floated what appeared to be a child-sized form, still indistinct but unmistakably growing more defined by the hour. Nera's new body. To one side of the chamber, Nera herself lay on a crystal platform connected to the tank by streams of light that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Her eyes were closed, her breathing slow and even. Taro stood beside her, his metallic hand gently holding hers. "We maintain her in a sleep state," the keeper explained as we approached. "It eases the preparation process and prevents pain." "Can I speak to her?" I asked, already moving to my daughter's side. "Yes. Though her response may be limited, she will hear you." I knelt beside the platform, taking Nera's free hand in mine. Her skin felt cooler than usual, but the distinctive markings on her small forearms still pulsed with their characteristic glow. "I'm here, little star," I whispered. "Just like I promised. Everything is going well. You're going to have a new body soon, one that doesn't hurt, one that works properly." Her eyelids fluttered but didn't open. "Mommy," she murmured, the words slurred with sleep. "Where's Captain Dane?" The question pierced my heart. I looked up at Taro, whose optical sensors dimmed slightly, his version of sorrow. "The captain ensured our safe return," the android said quietly, "at considerable risk to himself." I squeezed Nera's hand gently. "Captain Dane had to stay with the Wayfarer for a while, little star, but he wanted me to tell you to be brave. Can you do that?" A small nod. "Is he coming back?" I swallowed hard. "We're going to do everything we can to bring him back." This seemed to satisfy her, and she drifted deeper into sleep, lights connecting her to the tank pulsing more strongly. "Her neural patterns show increased stability," the keeper observed. "Your presence strengthens her." I rose, turning to face the ancient being. "Tell me everything about this procedure. I need to understand exactly what's happening to my daughter." The keeper gestured, and holographic displays appeared around us, showing complex diagrams of neural patterns, genetic sequences, and energy flows. The new vessel combines organic material cultured from the child's own cells with synthetic elements stabilized by our technology. Unlike the consortium's crude attempts at integration, our methods achieve true harmony between the biological and the technological. I studied the displays, recognizing aspects of my own modified genetics alongside completely foreign elements. And her consciousness, her memories, her personality, they transfer intact. Yes, the essence of who she is remains unchanged, only the vessel changes. What will she be capable of? After the transfer, the keeper's form shifted patterns of light, reorganizing into something more contemplative. That depends partly on her. The new form has greater potential than her current one, better integration, more stability, extended lifespan. But how she develops those capabilities will be her choice. "Will she still be my daughter?" I asked, voicing my deepest fear. "Or will she become something else entirely?" "She will always be your daughter," the keeper assured me. "The bond between you transcends physical form. But yes, she will also be something new, something with the potential to bridge worlds in ways the consortium never imagined." I looked back at Nera's sleeping form, so small and vulnerable despite the power the consortium had engineered into her genes. Whatever she became, whatever remarkable future awaited her, my job remained the same: to protect her, to guide her, to love her unconditionally. "How can I help?" I asked finally. "With the procedure. Your genetic pattern contains elements vital to the integration process. We will need to sample your neural activity periodically to help calibrate the transfer." The keeper hesitated. "There is something else you should know." I tensed. "What?" The child spoke of the man in the light during her initial neural mapping, a presence she senses in the quantum field. My heart leapt. Dane, she can sense him. Possibly. The quantum field exists in a state of probability rather than fixed reality. Consciousness can sometimes maintain coherence within it in ways physical matter cannot. The keeper's tone grew cautious. However, without a stable anchor point, such consciousness tends to disperse over time. The implication was clear. Dane might still exist within the field, but he was in danger of losing himself, of dissolving into the quantum possibilities. "How long?" I asked, dreading the answer. "How long before dispersion becomes irreversible?" "For an unmodified human, approximately 72 hours. Less if his ship's life support systems fail. 3 days. 3 days to complete Nera's procedure, and then find a way to rescue Dane before he was lost forever to the quantum field. After Nera's transfer is complete, I said, determination hardening my voice, I want your help to retrieve him, whatever it takes. The keeper seemed to consider this. Such an attempt would be extremely dangerous. The field becomes more unstable with each entry and exit. I don't care, he's sacrificed everything for us. I won't abandon him. Something like respect flickered through the keeper's crystalline form. Very well, once the child's procedure is complete, we will discuss possibilities. For the next 36 hours, I barely left the Genesis chamber. I watched as Nera's new body took form in the suspension tank features, sharpening from vague outline to precise detail. It looked remarkably like her, the same silver-white hair, the same delicate features, but with subtle differences. The markings on the new form's skin were more intricate, more harmonious. The proportions slightly altered to accommodate the enhanced neural structures. Throughout the process, I submitted to the keeper's tests, allowing them to map my own neural patterns to help calibrate the transfer. Each session left me exhausted but determined. Taro remained constantly at Nera's side, his systems gradually integrating with the sanctuaries technology. The android was changing too, his movements becoming more fluid, his speech patterns less mechanical. When I questioned this, he explained that the keeper had offered him optimizations. I remained myself, he assured me, but improved, better able to protect Nera in her new form. Finally, the moment arrived. The suspension tank's fluid drained away, leaving the completed new vessel suspended in a web of light. Nera's original body, now alarmingly frail, was positioned directly opposite the two forms facing each other across the chamber's center. We are ready to begin the transfer, the keeper announced. The process will appear dramatic, but Nera will feel no pain. Her consciousness will transition smoothly from one vessel to the other. I stood at the chamber's edge, hands pressed against the crystal barrier that had been erected for safety. My heart pounded with equal measures of hope and terror. Initiating neural synchronization, the keeper intoned as streams of light began to flow between Nera's original body and her new vessel. Consciousness mapping at 97% fidelity, beginning transfer sequence. The lights intensified, pulsating in complex patterns that made my modified senses ache with recognition. I could feel the massive energies being channeled, the intricate calculations being performed at speeds beyond comprehension. For one breathtaking moment, both bodies illuminated simultaneously, perfect mirrors of the same consciousness existing in two vessels at once. Then Nera's original form dimmed the light, transferring completely to the new vessel. The chamber fell silent. The streams of light dissipated. For a terrible second, neither body moved. Then the new vessel's eyes opened. They were still Nera's eyes, the same unusual violet color, the same curious gaze. They found mine immediately across the chamber. Mommy. The voice was Nera's too, though slightly clearer, more melodic. The safety barrier dissolved, and I rushed forward as her new body was gently lowered to the chamber floor. She stood on her own, looking down at her hands, her arms with wonder. How do you feel, little star? I asked, kneeling before her, afraid to touch her until I knew it was safe. She smiled, that same brilliant smile that had kept me going through our darkest days. I feel whole. She moved her arms experimentally. The buzzing is gone, and it doesn't hurt anymore when I think too much. Relief washed through me in a dizzying wave. I opened my arms, and she stepped into them without hesitation. The embrace felt different, her body temperature more regulated, her movements more precise, but the essential narrowness of her remained. The transfer is complete, the keeper confirmed. All neural patterns stable, consciousness integration at 100%. I held my daughter close, tears streaming down my face. Thank you, I whispered to the keeper, to Taro, to the ancient technology that had given my child a second chance. And silently to Dane, wherever he was in the quantum field. You did it. You saved her. Nera pulled back slightly, her new eyes somehow older, wiser, looking up at mine. I can still feel him, Mommy. Captain Dane. He's in the light, but he's getting harder to find. My breath caught. You can sense him through the quantum field. She nodded solemnly. He thinks about us, about you. But the thoughts are getting all stretched out. I looked up at the keeper, desperate hope flaring. If she can sense him, can she help us locate him, create an anchor point for retrieval? The ancient being's form flickered with what might have been surprise. Perhaps the child's new neural structure does have enhanced quantum sensitivity. Theoretically, she could establish a connection strong enough to guide a retrieval attempt. Then we need to try. Now. I rose, still keeping one hand on Nera's shoulder. You said human consciousness begins irreversible dispersion after 72 hours. We're already past the halfway point. The keeper seemed to hesitate. The child has just completed transfer. She requires rest calibration. I want to help Captain Dane. Nera interrupted, her voice small but determined. He saved us. Now we save him. Taro stepped forward. I will assist as well. My enhanced systems may be able to help stabilize any connection the child establishes. Outnumbered, the keeper's form rippled with what I was learning to interpret as resignation. Very well, but the retrieval must be attempted from within the sanctuary. The risk is too great otherwise. Fine, whatever it takes. The keeper led us to a different chamber, smaller, dominated by a platform surrounded by crystalline pillars. This is a quantum resonance chamber. We use it to communicate with our other outposts across space-time. Can it reach into the distortion field? I asked. With modification, the child's connection will be key. The keeper turned to Nera. You must focus on the presence you sense, Captain Korran. Try to make that connection as strong as possible. Nera nodded solemnly and stepped onto the platform. Immediately, the crystalline pillars began to glow, responding to her presence. Now close your eyes, the keeper instructed gently. Picture Captain Korran in your mind. Remember his voice, his face, the feeling you get when he's near. As Nera concentrated, the glow intensified. Patterns of light formed in the air above the platform, at first random, then gradually coalescing into a vague human shape. She's establishing connection, the keeper confirmed. Remarkable stability for one so young. I watched, barely breathing, as the shape became more defined. Dane's features slowly emerged, his face, his form rendered in light rather than matter. Dane, I whispered, can you hear us? The figure didn't respond, but its head turned slightly, as if sensing something just beyond perception. The connection is one way, the keeper explained. She can sense him, but he cannot yet perceive us. How do we make it two-way? I demanded. How do we bring him back? The quantum field requires an exchange. To extract something of equal complexity must be inserted. Take me then, I said immediately. Put me in, bring him out. No, mommy, Nera's eye flew open, the connection wavering. You can't go. The keeper's form flickered with what seemed like approval at my daughter's objection. The child is right. Such an exchange would be unacceptable and unnecessary. There are alternatives. What alternatives? A quantum anchor. Something stable enough to serve as a fixed point within the field around which we can create a retrieval corridor. The keeper gestured to one of the crystalline pillars which detached from the floor and floated to the center of the chamber. This will serve. And how do we get it to Dane? We don't. We bring Dane to it. The keeper turned to Nera. Child, can you strengthen your connection? Draw his consciousness toward you. Nera closed her eyes again, her face scrunched in concentration. The light figure of Dane sharpened, becoming more substantial. He feels it, she said, voice strained. He's trying to follow, but he's scattered. Pieces of him are everywhere. Taro, the keeper, said, interface with the chamber. Add your processing power to the connection. The android stepped forward, placing his metallic hands on two of the remaining pillars. His optical sensors dimmed as his consciousness partially transferred to the sanctuary's systems. Connection strengthening, he reported. I detect cognitive patterns consistent with Captain Korran's neural signature, attempting to consolidate dispersed elements. The light figure of Dane grew stronger, more coherent. I could now see the details of his face, eyes closed, expression peaceful as if in deep sleep. Dane, I called, stepping closer to the platform. Dane, follow my voice. Come back to us. His light form stirred, head turning more definitely toward the sound. Captain Dane, Nera called, her young voice surprisingly strong. We need you. I have a new body now, just like you said I would. But you have to come see it? The figure's eyes opened, glowing points of light in the luminous face. He seemed to look around, confused but increasingly aware. He's regaining coherence, the keeper confirmed. Prepare the anchor. The central crystal pillar began to pulse, emitting a beam of energy directly into the heart of Dane's light form. For a moment, he seemed to be in pain, his figure distorting around the beam. "What's happening?" I demanded. "Are you hurting him?" "The anchor creates a fixed reference point within quantum probability," the keeper explained. "The process is disorienting but necessary. His consciousness must reorganize around it." Gradually, Dane's form stabilized, the light becoming more solid, more defined, gathering around the energy beam, like iron filings to a magnet. "Consciousness stabilized," Taro reported, "beginning physical reconstruction." "Physical reconstruction," I echoed. "What does that mean?" The keeper's form shifted with what might have been discomfort. "Captain Korran's physical body has been exposed to the quantum field for over 40 hours. The probabilistic nature of the field means that his original molecular structure has likely destabilized." Horror washed through me. "Are you saying his body is gone?" "Not gone, transformed, existing in multiple potential states simultaneously. We must collapse those probabilities back into a single coherent form." As if in response to the keeper's words, Dane's light form began to change. The luminous energy condensed, becoming more opaque, more substantial. What had been a figure of pure light was gradually taking on physical characteristics: skin, hair, the fabric of his clothing. "It's working." I breathed, hardly daring to believe. "Molecular reconstruction at 60%, Taro announced. "Vital signs detecting. Consciousness integration progressing." Minutes stretched like hours as Dane's form continued to materialize. I could now see the rise and fall of his chest, the slight twitch of his fingers. He was becoming real again, pulled from quantum potential back into physical reality. Finally, the process appeared complete. A solid physical Dane Korran stood on the platform, supported by the energy beam from the crystal pillar. His eyes remained closed, but he was unmistakably, wonderfully real. "Anchor disengaging," the keeper said. "Brace for transition." The energy beam faded and Dane immediately began to collapse. I lunged forward, catching him before he hit the platform. His body was warm, substantial in my arms, no longer light or energy, but flesh and blood. "Dane," I called softly, cradling his head. "Dane, can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered, then opened. Those familiar blue eyes focused slowly, finally finding mine. "Sera," his voice was hoarse, barely audible. Did I?" "You're back," I confirmed, tears streaming freely down my face. "You're safe. We brought you back." A weak smile curved his lips. "Told you I'd find a way." Nera scrambled over her new body, moving with the grace her old one had never managed. "Captain Dane, you followed my voice. I knew you would." His eyes widened slightly as he took in her transformed appearance. "Nera, is that you, kiddo?" She nodded enthusiastically. "It's me. I got my new body just like you said I would. And I don't hurt anymore." That's wonderful." His gaze returned to mine, questions in his eyes. "Later," I said softly. "Rest now. You've been through more than anyone should have to endure." The keeper approached, its crystalline form hovering near. "Captain Korran will need time to stabilize. The reconstruction process is taxing on both body and mind." "But he'll recover fully," I asked. "Yes, though not without changes. Exposure to by you, the quantum field leaves its mark even after retrieval." I looked down at Dane, who had already drifted back into unconsciousness, his breathing steady but shallow. Whatever changes the quantum field had wrought, we would face them together. He had saved Nera. We had saved him. Nothing else mattered. With Taro's help, we moved Dane to a recovery chamber, a peaceful room with walls that shifted between soothing colors, somehow responsive to the occupant's needs. I sat beside him as he slept, watching the gentle rise and fall of his chest, reassuring myself that he was really here, really alive. Nera curled up on a crystal bench nearby, her new body requiring less rest than her old one, but still needing quiet time to process the day's events. Taro stood guard at the chamber entrance, his enhanced systems vigilantly monitoring both Dane's vital signs and the sanctuary's security perimeter. "He dreams of stars," Nera murmured sleepily at one point. "And of you, Mommy." I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "How do you know that little star?" I can see the light of his thoughts now," she yawned. "They're pretty." Another new ability, apparently one we would need to explore carefully. But for now, I was simply grateful that we were all here, all safe. Hours passed. I must have dozed off myself because I woke to the sensation of someone watching me. Opening my eyes, I found Dane awake, propped up slightly on his elbow, studying me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Hi," he said softly, lips curving in a small smile. "Hi yourself," I replied, straightening in my chair. "How do you feel?" He seemed to consider this carefully. "Strange, like I've been everywhere and nowhere at once." His gaze drifted to the sleeping form of Nera, then back to me. "You did it. You saved her." "We did it," I corrected. "Your sacrifice gave us the time we needed, and then she helped save you." His eyebrows rose slightly. "She did?" "She could sense you in the quantum field, created a connection strong enough for the Keeper to establish a retrieval corridor." Dane's expression grew thoughtful. "I remember fragments being scattered across possibilities, and then a voice, Nera's voice, calling me back." He reached out his hand, finding mine. "And yours, always yours." The simple touch sent warmth spreading through me. I twined my fingers with his, savoring the solid reality of his presence. "The Keeper says you'll need time to recover fully," I said. "The quantum field changed you somehow." "I know." His free hand rose to his temple, fingers tracing patterns I couldn't see. "I can feel it, like echoes of other possibilities, other versions of myself that might have been." His blue eyes met mine, suddenly intense. "But all of them found their way back to you, Sera. In every quantum reality I find you." The words struck me with unexpected force, resonating with something deep and unnamed within me. Before I could respond, Nara stirred, her eyes opening to find Dane awake. "Captain Dane." She bounded over with her new grace, stopping just short of throwing herself at him. "You're really back." His smile widened. "Thanks to you, I hear. Nice rescue job, kiddo." She beamed, practically vibrating with excitement. "Do you like my new body? The Keeper made it special, and so I won't get sick anymore. And I can do all sorts of things now." "It's amazing," Dane said warmly. "You look like yourself, just more so." "The upgrade does suit her," Taro commented, approaching the bed. "Captain, it is good to see you functional again. Your quantum dispersion rate had reached concerning levels before retrieval." Dane laughed weakly. "Good to see you too, Taro. Looks like you got some upgrades yourself." The android inclined his head. "The sanctuary's technology has enhanced my capabilities considerably. I am now better equipped to assist in protecting Nera." "And Sera, is she getting any fancy upgrades?" There was a teasing lilt to Dane's voice, but I sensed genuine curiosity beneath it. "The Keeper offered," I admitted, "but I declined for now. I wanted to focus on getting you back first." His expression softened. "Always taking care of everyone else. Look who's talking. The man who flew deliberately into a quantum distortion field to save a child he barely knew." "Best bad decision I ever made," he said softly, squeezing my hand. The moment was interrupted by the Keeper's arrival, its crystalline form gliding into the chamber. "Captain Korran, it is good to see you conscious. Your recovery progresses more rapidly than anticipated." Dane nodded to the ancient being. "Thank you for pulling me out of whatever that was." "The quantum probability field exists between realities," the Keeper explained. "Few organic beings survive exposure, much less return with consciousness intact." "Lucky me." Dane attempted to sit up, further wincing slightly. "So what happens now?" "The consortium ship departed the sector approximately 4 hours ago after emergency repairs," the Keeper informed us. "They no longer pose an immediate threat to the sanctuary." Relief washed through me. "So we're safe, truly safe. For now." The Keeper's form shifted in what I was learning to interpret as hesitation. "However, the very fact that they were able to trace you here suggests their technology has evolved beyond our expectations. They may return with more resources, better equipment." "Then we need to leave," Dane said firmly, "as soon as I'm well enough to travel. Take the Wayfarer and..." He stopped, realization dawning. "My ship, is it?" "The Wayfarer remains trapped within the quantum field," the Keeper confirmed. "Retrieval would be extraordinarily difficult, perhaps impossible." Dane's face fell, and I understood immediately. That ship wasn't just a vessel to him, it was home freedom identity. We have alternatives, the keeper continued. The sanctuary maintains several vessels for emergencies. One could be adapted for your use. An ancient ship, I asked, unable to hide my surprise. You would trust us with such technology? With limitations, yes. The child is now intrinsically linked to our legacy. Her safety and yours aligns with our preservation protocols. Dane and I exchanged glances. An ancient vessel would certainly be faster, more advanced than the Wayfarer, but it would also be more conspicuous, more likely to draw attention. What about the consortium, I asked? They won't stop hunting us just because we have a new ship. The keeper's form pulsed thoughtfully. No, but perhaps the nature of the hunt could change. It turned to Nera, who was listening with unusual attentiveness. Child, would you allow me to show your mother and Captain Korran something important? Nera nodded solemnly. The keeper extended a tendril of crystalline light, which formed a small holographic display in the air between us. It showed a star map, but unlike any I had seen before. Familiar systems were there, but connected by pathways that corresponded to no known trade routes or jump points. These are quantum corridors, the keeper explained, natural pathways between realities invisible to conventional technology. Our vessels can navigate them. So can the child with her new neural structure. You're suggesting we use these corridors to travel? Dane asked, studying the map with interest. Stay off the normal routes, avoid consortium checkpoints. Yes, and more. The map zoomed in on a specific sector, highlighting a small, unremarkable system at the edge of known space. Here lies another sanctuary, smaller than this one, but equally hidden. A place where the child could continue to learn about her abilities and safety. A permanent sanctuary, I asked, hope and suspicion warring within me. What's the catch? The keeper's form shifted. No catch, as you put it, but a request. The child represents a bridge between your technology and ours, a natural evolution we once believed would take millennia to occur. Her existence is significant. We wish to guide her development, ensure she understands her potential. I looked at Nera, who was watching the star map with fascination, her new eyes tracking the quantum corridors as if she could already see them stretching across space. This would be Nera's choice, I said firmly, not mine, not yours. If and when she's old enough to understand what you're asking. Of course, the keeper agreed. But the sanctuary offers immediate safety while she grows into that choice. Dane, who had been quiet during this exchange, finally spoke. And after, if she chooses differently than you hope, then that is her right, the keeper said simply. We do not seek to control, only to preserve and guide. The tension in Dane's shoulders eased slightly. He looked to me, then to Nera. What do you think kiddo feel like living in a secret ancient outpost for a while? Nera considered this with adorable seriousness. Will you and Mommy and Taro be there too? Of course, I assured her quickly. And can I learn to fly the special ship? Dane laughed, the sound warming something in my chest. Eventually, when you were a bit older, she nodded decisively. Then yes, I want to go to the other sanctuary. The keeper's form brightened. Excellent. We will begin preparations immediately. It turned to Dane. Captain Korran will need another day of rest before travel. The quantum exposure requires complete cellular stabilization. I feel fine, Dane protested, though the pallor of his skin suggested otherwise. You will feel fine once the process completes, the keeper corrected. Until then, rest. With that, the ancient being glided from the chamber, leaving us to contemplate our unexpected new direction. Taro, detecting Nera's growing restlessness, offered to show her more of the sanctuary while Dane rested. I watched them go, my daughter skipping alongside the android, her movements fluid and natural in her new body, her voice animated as she peppered Taro with questions. Once they were gone, I turned back to Dane, who was watching me with that same unreadable expression from earlier. What? I asked, suddenly self-conscious. Just trying to decide if you're real, he admitted. Or if this is another quantum possibility my mind created while I was scattered across realities. I moved from the chair to sit on the edge of his bed, taking his hand again. I'm real, we all are. His fingers traced the markings on my forearm, sending shivers across my skin. You know, I've been thinking about what the keeper said about other sanctuaries' quantum corridors, about Nera's future. And I'm wondering where I fit into all this. He met my eyes directly. The Wayfarer's gone, my old life gone. I followed you two into something I barely understand, and now you're having second thoughts. I finished, my heart sinking. No. His hand tightened on mine. Now I'm realizing I don't want to be anywhere else. That whatever this new life is, whatever strange path we're on, I want to walk it with you. With both of you. The simple honesty in his words took my breath away. In the consortium facilities, I'd been taught that emotions were inefficient attachment, a weakness. But here was this human, this remarkable man, offering attachment as a strength connection, as a choice made freely and without calculation. I thought I lost you, I whispered, the fear I'd been suppressing finally surfacing. When you pushed me into that escape pod, when I watched the Wayfarer disappear into the quantum field, I thought I'd never see you again. But you came for me anyway, he said softly. You risked everything to pull me back. Of course I did. The words came without thought, simple and true. You're important to me, to us. Dane's smile was gentle understanding. And you're important to me, more than important. His free hand rose to cup my cheek. I've existed across 1,000 quantum possibilities, Sera. And in every single one, I found myself coming back to you. This time when our lips met, there was no desperation, no goodbye, only a beginning, a promise, a future unfolding with possibilities as vast as the quantum corridors themselves. We had started as strangers, a desperate refugee, and a rogue pilot thrown together by chance at the edge of a spaceport. Now we were something else entirely. Partners, protectors, family. Whatever lay ahead, the consortium's pursuit, Nera's evolving abilities, the mysteries of ancient technology, we would face it together, not because we had to, but because we chose to. Because sometimes the universe's greatest miracles aren't found in quantum fields or ancient sanctuaries, but in the simple human choice to stand by someone when everyone else turns away. If this journey across the stars touched your heart, make sure you're subscribed to catch all my upcoming sci-fi and HFY stories. What did you think of Dane and Sera's adventure? Do you believe Nera will master her new abilities at the sanctuary? Drop a comment below with your favorite moment from this story, and let me know what kind of cosmic tale you'd like to hear next. Your support means the universe to me, and I can't wait to bring you more stories where humanity's compassion shines among the stars.